The first time Leora then noticed the change, it was so small she almost missed it. Her sister, Marin, had started locking her bedroom door, not just at night, but during the day, when there was no reason for it. It was early autumn in the city of Verlin, the streets turning gold with leaves, the smell of roasted chestnuts drifting from the street vendors. Leora had stopped by Marin's room to return a scarf she'd borrowed. She tried the door. Locked. Inside, she heard a whisper, too low to make out, and then the scrape of something being pushed under the bed. "Busy," Marin called, her voice light, too light. Leora didn't think much of it that day. Sisters kept secrets, after all. But over the weeks, she began to notice other things. Marin's phone was always face down when Leora entered the room. She left the house at odd hours, sometimes dressed as if she were going somewhere she didn't want anyone to know about. And when she came back, she smelled faintly of someone else's perfume, not her own. The two had always been close. Leora was the younger by 3 years, quieter, content to let Marin lead in most things. Their parents had died when Leora was 18, leaving them the small family house on Barrow Street and a modest inheritance. They had promised each other they would stick together, no matter what. That promise had always been enough. Until it wasn't. The break came one rainy Thursday evening. Leora had been seeing Arvin Malric for almost a year. He was thoughtful, soft-spoken, the kind of man who remembered the little things. How she took her tea, that she hated the smell of lilies, and that her favorite view in the whole city was the bridge over the Eastwater Canal at sunset. She thought, quietly, that maybe this was it. She came home early from work, soaked from the rain, ready to surprise him. He had said he'd be working late. The lights were on in Marin's room. She walked past, and through the narrow gap in the door, just before it clicked shut, she saw him. Arvin. His jacket was off, his hair mussed, and Marin was standing in front of him, too close, smiling in a way she'd never seen her smile at her. Leora stood there for a moment, rain dripping from her hair onto the floorboards, before she walked quietly to her own room and shut the door. She didn't pry. Not then. That night, she lay awake long after the house had gone silent. She thought of the way Arvin's hand had once fit so easily into hers, of how Marion used to braid her hair for school, of the promises they'd made in their parents' absence, to be each other's family first. She thought of all of it, and something inside her shifted. Revenge didn't come to her like a flash of lightning. It came like the slow rising of a tide. The next morning, she smiled as if nothing had changed. She laughed when Marion made a joke over breakfast. She kissed Arvin goodbye when he dropped by that weekend. And she began to plan. At first, it was simple observation. She watched how they tried to hide, the way Arvin glanced at Marion when he thought Leora wasn't looking, the sudden silences when she entered a room. She noticed Marion's new clothes, paid for with money she didn't have. She made notes, mental at first, then written, in a small leather book she kept hidden behind the baseboard in her closet. She learned their routines. Marion met Arvin on Tuesday afternoons when Leora was at her ceramics class. Arvin told her he worked late on Thursdays. Those were the nights they went to the Rivermere Inn, a quiet place on the outskirts of the city where no one would know them. Leora didn't confront them. Confrontation was messy. Confrontation left room for denial, for apologies that were nothing but words. No, she decided. They wouldn't see her coming until there was nothing left to save. Her first move was to grow closer to Arvin's family. He was estranged from them, an old dispute over money and trust. Leora sought them out, under the pretense of wanting to understand him better. She visited his mother, Anessa, bringing small gifts, asking questions about his childhood. She learned things, that Arvin had lied about why he left, that he'd taken more than his share of the family's inheritance when his father died, that he feared most of all being exposed as untrustworthy. She tucked that knowledge away. Over months, she built a careful image. She was still the loving sister, the devoted partner. But in small, almost invisible ways, she began to undermine them. When Mayrin misplaced her keys, Leora found them days later in places Mayrin swore she hadn't been. When Arvin forgot details of a conversation, she gently insisted he'd said the opposite. Little things, just enough to make them second-guess themselves. She waited. The first real crack came nearly a year later. Arvin had been up for a promotion at his firm, a position that required a flawless reputation. Leora made sure an anonymous letter reached the hiring committee, hinting at discrepancies in his past financial dealings. She included just enough truth from what she'd learned from his mother to make it believable. The promotion went to someone else. Arvin was furious, though he didn't know where to aim it. He began drinking more. Mayrin began staying out later without him. Leora watched, patient as frost. Her second strike was against Mayrin. Leora knew her sister had been saving to move out, perhaps to live with Arvin. She also knew Mayrin's savings were kept in a small credit union account protected by a password that, after months of subtle observation, Leora had guessed. One quiet night, while Mayrin slept, Leora transferred most of the money to an account she had opened under a false name. She left just enough that it would seem plausible Mayrin had spent it carelessly. When Mayrin discovered the loss, she blamed the bank, then herself. The arguments between her and Arvin grew sharper. Still, Leora smiled. By the second year, they were fraying. Arvin was distant, Mayrin defensive, but Leora knew the final blow had to be public. Private ruin could be hidden, public ruin could not. She began to plan an event, a gathering at the house, a celebration of their parents' anniversary, something that would bring together family, friends, and neighbors. She invited Arvin's family, despite his protests. She told Mayrin it would be small, intimate. It was neither. The night of the gathering, the house was warm with light and laughter. Leora moved through the crowd with a glass of wine, greeting guests, making sure everyone had what they needed. She watched Mayrin and Arvin try to pretend everything was fine. When the moment was right, she called for quiet. "I have something special to share tonight," she said, her voice steady, almost kind. "A tribute to my sister and to Arvin, two people I have loved deeply." She gestured to the projector she'd set up in the corner. The lights dimmed. The first image appeared, Mayrin and Arvin together at the Rivermere Inn, his hand on her back. Then another, taken months later, in Mayrin's room when they thought they were alone. And another. Gasps rippled through the room. Someone dropped a glass. Arvin's mother stood, her face pale. "So it's true," she whispered. Leora didn't stop. She read aloud from messages she had printed, conversations between them in which they mocked her, plotted how to take the house from her, how to push her out of her own life. By the time she was done, Mayrin was sobbing, Arvin standing frozen, his career, his family, and his relationship all shattered in one night. Leora looked at them both, her face calm. She said, softly, "Family first. That's what we promised. I'm just keeping my word." In the weeks that followed, Mayrin moved in with a distant cousin across the city. Arvin left Verulan entirely. Leora kept the house on Barrow Street, quiet now, but entirely her own. Sometimes, in the deep hours of night, she would think of that rainy Thursday, of the moment the door closed between them. She would think of the tide that had risen, slow and sure, until it washed everything they had away. And she would sleep soundly.